Now, number two. How many manuscripts were written? Okay? So, first of all, we have seen the gap in terms of when the manuscripts were written. Okay? And Jesus is winning. The next is, how many manuscripts? Now, you need more manuscripts. If you have more manuscripts, you can verify the authenticity of the story. Does that make sense? Hello? If something happened and there is only one account of that thing that happened, that account can be doctored, can be changed. Supposing something happened and there are 5 of us, that is one person. One person, he comes out and tells us his story. Whatever he tells us, we're going to accept. But if there are 5 of us, and we all saw what happened, and then we come and you ask us questions, if 4 of us say the same thing and one person says something different, it is easy for you to know that, oh, this person saying something different is not right. These 4 persons have a better argument. Does that make sense? Okay, so you need more manuscript, more copies to prove that the stories exist. So for Caesar's account, remember, account of Caesar took how many years? No. Caesar took 1,000 years. Now, how many manuscripts exist of that account, of that manuscript? How many copies? How many copies of that manuscript exist? 10. Okay? So, Caesar's account, Caesar's story, this Caesar's manuscript has 10 copies available. Plato, the popular Plato, how many manuscripts? Of course, remember that his time gap is what? 1,000. So we're in school now, so don't sleep on me now. There will be assignment. 1,200 years. How many copies? 7. Aristotle, 1,400 years. How many copies? 49 copies. The New Testament, the account of Jesus' life, his biography. Remember, 25 to 50 years, that's how long it took. How many copies exist? Over 25,000 copies. 25,000. So that you can verify this account. Remember, this one is so gone that you don't even remember the things that happened. But for Jesus, everywhere they go, they keep digging up copies of the manuscript of his life. Which means you can take the copies from everywhere and reconcile and verify that this thing that this story is saying, nobody's doctoring it. And of course, when they check the Greek copies, the Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, they found that they were 99.5% accurate. The same. In other words, what this one is saying is what this one is saying, is what this one is saying. 99.5%. There is no ancient document with that level of accuracy. If you will believe that Caesar exists after 1,000 years story and then 7 copies of his manuscript, why is it hard to believe that Jesus exists after just 25 years of his life? His account was written, and you have 25,000 manuscripts, copies of the manuscript. Number 3. That's what is called what do you get? You know, you have corroborate, right? What's corroborate? Corroborate means that somebody is agreeing to what somebody said, right? So that's what is called corroborative tests. That means how many documents are mentioning what is mentioned in this account? How many documents? How many persons are writing something that agrees with what has been written in this book? Now, for Caesar, the number of documents that you have that wrote about him outside of his work is 10. 10 documents. For Jesus is 42. So why is it easier to believe a Caesar than to believe a Jesus? How do we know that what we have in the Bible, in the New Testament, is true? How do we know that this is what happened? That this is not a story someone has made up? One way is to say, how early was the manuscript? Manuscript is here. This one is printed. Original one, copy, is manuscript. How long did it take between when what happened and when they wrote the manuscript? Do you understand? If that time is long, there is now room for error. Do you understand that? Now, for Caesar, that time is 1,000 years before his manuscript, copy of his autograph, what he wrote. Do you understand? Aristotle, 1,400 years. Which means we believe these people as ancient figures. But their document has a lot of room for error. For Jesus, his own is 25 to 50 years. Very short. Which means what is written has to reflect because it's still current. Do you understand? The next is how many copies of the book exists. Because if there are many copies, we can now be sure that we can recreate what happened from various copies. The man that has one copy has not changed anything in the copy. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so for Caesar, how many copies did we say exist? 10. Okay, 10. For Plato, 7. For Aristotle, 49. For Jesus, about 25,000 copies. Which means you can be sure that there's availability of information concerning this person than this person. I'm saying, if Jesus has so much evidence, material written, this is not church study, this is historians studying these ancient figures. It makes more sense to believe that Jesus exists than that Caesar exists.